Hey gang, using the promo code MTGMudsta, one word, all caps, will get you 10% off orders of $10 or more at Flipside Gaming, Original Magic Art, and orders of singles at Multizone. If they don't have what you're looking for, you could check out TCG Player and use my affiliate link to help support the channel. Looking for a way to bling out your deck and not spend a fortune? Alter Sleaze can help with that, and you can help with the channel at the same time by using my affiliate link. Or, if you're looking to join the Goblin Gang, you can always support me through Patreon. Hey gang, and welcome back to another holiday installment of my EDH gameplays. If you don't celebrate Christmas, that's still cool, it just means you get an extra game. Today's game continues the trend of doing themed games, and I've done games with mono black, mono blue, and mono red. Well, today's game throws the mono part out the window, and we're all playing 5-color decks. Ryan is playing his Sisay, keeping Mana Confluence, Nahiri, Snow-Covered Mountain, Exotic Orchard, Oath of Gideon, and an Interplanar Beacon. Harry is playing Tazri, keeping a Croson Verge, a Mountain, Fiend Hunter, Sakashima, Fate Stitcher, Farseek, and Priest of Forgotten Gods. Trevor is playing Golos, keeping Mana Crypt, Tatyova, Druid of Elysian Fields, Fetid Pool, Cascading Cataract, and 2 Triomes. I'm playing Horde of Notions, keeping a Prairie Stream, Hollowed Fountain, Smoke Braider, Drowned Catacomb, Mountain, Canopy Vista, and Unsettled Mariner. Ryan wins the die roll and starts us off. Ryan plays a tap Stomping Ground. Harry plays a tap Croson Verge. Trevor plays a Ketria Triome, which comes in tapped. I play a tapped Hollowed Fountain. Ryan plays a tap Sunstep Citadel. Harry plays a tap Sisay Triome, passing. Trevor draws and casts a Mana Crypt. He then casts Dryad of Alien Grove and drops his own Sisay Triome, and then plays a tap Fetid Pools as his extra land drop. I play a Mountain, and I cast a Smoke Braider. Ryan plays his Interplanar Beacon and casts Oath of Liliana. It comes in, and we all sacrifice a creature if we can, and he passes to Harry. Harry plays a Mountain and cracks his Verge, passing turn. Trevor rolls and loses 3 to his Crypt. He plays out Tatyova in his main phase, and then plays a Cascading Cataracts, gaining 1 life and drawing from her as it enters. I cast Phantasmal Image in my main phase, having it also come in as a copy of Tatyova. I play a Windswept Heath, gaining 1 and drawing a card as it enters. I then crack it and go and find a tap Stomping Ground, drawing once more after I'm done shuffling. Ryan plays Exotic Orchard and then casts Sisay, passing. Harry plays a Temple Garden, taking 2 so it comes in untapped. He casts a Maelstrom Pulse on Trevor's Tatyova, which has the added benefit of taking out mine as well. He then casts Farseek to go and find a Triome, passing. Trevor rolls for the Crypt and avoids taking damage. He casts Lightning Greaves, and then takes 2 for an untapped Godless Shrine. Golos then makes his first appearance for the game, going to find Trevor a land as the Super Solemn enters. He shortcuts first, putting the Greaves onto his commander, and hitting Harry for 3 with Golos before passing and searching. I play a Polluted Delta, passing as I sacrifice it. Ryan plays a Snow-Covered Mountain and goes to combat. He swings his commander at the now defenseless Trevor, connecting and passing. Harry taps blue and 2, dropping the now older version of Sakashima. He has them come in as a copy of Golos, going to find a land as a Super Solemn copy enters. He grabs a Path of Ancestry from the trigger, and then plays a tapped Watery Grave. Harry then pays 2 for Priest of Forgotten Gods, and passes to Trevor. Trevor rolls for his Crypt, and passes, not taking any damage. He plays Scalding Tarn, getting a zombie token from the Field of the Dead that he found with Golos before. He then plays a Rites of Flourishing, and plays a tap Vesuva as an extra copy of the field. It comes in, and triggers itself and the actual field, making 2 zombie tokens, and Trevor then passes. I draw my 2 and play a Plains and then a Prairie Stream. I cast Spitting Image, making a token copy of Golos, which comes in and finds me a land. Golos gone wild.
Yeah, I still have my regular Golos in the deck to draw too.
Nice. And pass while searching. Ryan draws his cards and plays a Mana Confluence for turn, and then a Godless Shrine, taking 2 so it comes in untapped. He also casts a Farseek to find a Triome, and passes to Harry. Harry plays a Mana Confluence of his own, and counts up his mana. 5 mana gets him a Havengul Lich, which is one of my favorite Dimir cards, and he pays 1 to activate it. He targets my Phantasmal Image in my graveyard, and then casts it, having it come as a copy of Trevor's Golos. This lets him go and find another land, and he doesn't need to sacrifice Sakashima because Sakashima still keeps its name. He passes, and at the end of turn, Trevor sacrifices the Scalding Tarn to lose 1 and go and find a land. He gets 2 more zombies as it comes in, and he starts his turn. Trevor rolls for his crypt and fails, taking 3. He draws his cards, and then taps the appropriate amount of mana to activate Golos. He exiles his top 3, playing the Marsh Flats from exile as one of his lands for turn, making 2 more zombies from the fields, and he then casts Eternal Witness, returning the Dryad to hand. And finally casts the Hydra. This lets him go and find a land, and he takes 1 from sacrificing the flats as well to save some time and search for both now. He then recasts the Dryad, which lets him play another land for turn, and this time it's an island. He then moves to combat, swinging his 5 older made zombies at Ryan. Ryan blocks 1, taking 8, and Trevor passes. I draw my cards, and play a forest and then Canopy Vista. I decide to follow Trevor's example, activating my token copy of Golos and exiling my top 3. I hit Royal Elemental, Muddle the Mixture, and Thicket Crasher. I cast the 2 elementals, and the Muddle sadly stays in exile. 2 mana gets me an Unsettled Mariner, and I then pass to Ryan. At the end of my turn, Ryan loses 1 from tapping his Confluence to activate Sisay. He goes into his library and reveals Oath of Nissa, putting it into play. He resolves the trigger after he's done shuffling, and he reveals another Triome. Ryan plays the Triome and a Seaside Citadel, which both come in tapped. He casts Reki in his main phase, and then takes another 1, casting Yeru with Open Eyes. This lets him draw from Reki, and he then tutors for a Planeswalker, revealing Teferi, Master of Time, and passes to Harry. Harry untaps, and draws his extra card, and then casts Fiend Hunter. He targets Trevor's Dryad, and with the trigger on the stack, Harry activates his Priest to sacrifice the Hunter and my Phantasmal Image copy. This has Harry's opponents each losing 2 life and have to sacrifice a creature, and Trevor uses this to just sacrifice the Dryad. Harry then plays an Indatha Triome, and drops Sower of Temptation. He steals the Uvenwald Hydra from Trevor, which we represent with a token. Harry then uses Lich to cast Trevor's Dryad from the graveyard, and passes to Trevor. Trevor rolls for his crypt, losing and taking another 3. He draws his cards and has a decent sized zombie army. He then taps enough to activate Golos again, exiling his top 3. He hits a Wayward Swordtooth, Seasons Past, and Flooded Strand. He doesn't have to cast them immediately, and Trevor heads to combat, swinging the Witness, Golos, and zombies at Harry. Harry stops 4 of the tokens and takes the rest. In his post-combat main phase, Trevor, jealous of other people playing with his commander, uses a Merciless Eviction to exile all creatures. Trevor then plays a Flooded Strand, getting 2 zombie tokens. The Swordtooth then also comes in, and gets the Greaves to protect it. And he then casts a Seasons Past, returning Scalding Tarn, Tatyova, and the Merciless Eviction. He then plays the Scalding Tarn as an extra land, getting 2 more zombies, and passing. I draw and don't know what to do here. I cast a Zendikar Royal and play a land, getting a 2/2 elemental token. This is kind of like having Field of Dead in play, but I have to pay 5 for it, so it's not really free. I then cast a Wildfire Elemental and pass to Ryan. Ryan plays Deploy the Gatewatch in his main phase, and I wait to see if he's going to whiff entirely from it. He doesn't, putting out a Nicol Bolas the Deceiver, and sadly, that's it. He then actually has to pay mana for Teferi, Master of Time, and Ryan then upticks the Walker, discarding Tybalt, and plays a land for turn. Ryan then upticks Bolos, and has his opponents given a choice, either lose 3, sack a creature, or take 3. Harry's the only one to take the 3, and Ryan then passes. Harry untaps for turn, and casts a Mother of Ruins. He then casts Reassembling Skeleton, and brings out Tazri as she costs 2 less. Harry then moves to his end step, and Ryan upticks Teferi to draw a card and discard one. Trevor rolls for his Crypt Trigger, and inches closer to death after failing. He draws his cards for turn, and recasts Golos in his main phase. He tutors for a land, and we see a Valakut hitting the field, making him 2 more zombies. Trevor then moves the Greaves over onto his commander, and sacrifices his fetches to go and find 2 more lands. He grabs a Sacred Foundry, having it come in untapped, and another Triome. This makes him 4 more zombie tokens from the fields, but sadly doesn't have an active Valakut just yet, with the next one coming into play triggering it. Thankfully, Trevor has one in hand, which he plays for turn, and deals 3 to Teferi from the Valakut trigger. Trevor then activates Golos, exiling his top 3. It's a forest, vampiric tutor, and wooded foothills. He still has 2 more land drops for turn, between the Rites and the Swordtooth, and he plays a forest and then the foothills, gaining another 4 zombies. He casts a vampiric tutor, and says he'll tutor after declaring his attacks. He swings 2 zombies at Teferi, and a zombie in the Swordtooth at Golos. Before moving to blocks, Ryan upticks Teferi to add a loyalty counter to his walker. Teferi then dies, and Bolos takes 7, while Trevor then goes to search and passes to me. I draw my 2 and go through my yard. I play Sulphur Falls, gaining a 2/2 elemental token, and cast Goblin Bombardment, tapping the rest of my mana after that for a Firecat Blitz. Fun fact, if you go to Gatherer, these kitties have been errata to also be elementals. I get 7 1/1 hasty kitties, and then sacrifice the elemental from the Royal to the Bombardment, dealing 1 to Trevor. This has the Wildfire elemental triggering and pumping my board by +1/+0. Unfortunately, I'd forgotten how many zombies Trevor had, plus his ability to make more with the wooded foothills being on the field sadly, so I decided to just try and force some blocks so that maybe Harry or Ryan can do something. I tap all the cat elementals and go at Trevor. Trevor uses 7 zombies to block 7 kitties, and I pass my turn. Ryan plays a tapped Crumbling Necropolis and upticks Bolas. All of his opponents discard a card to avoid the damage. Ryan then casts a Gideon Jura and downticks the Walker to destroy the Swordtooth. Ryan then plays Oath of Gideon and realizes he missed some triggers from the other oaths. Ryan then casts Call the Gatewatch, passing and searching. At the end of turn, Harry activates Tazri and is able to reveal Vizier of Tumbling Sands and Vizier of Many Faces, putting them to hand. Harry draws 2 and Ryan reveals Nicol Bolas Planeswalker. Harry then casts Vizier of Many Faces, and he has it come in as a copy of Golos because clones don't target. He finds a Mosswort Bridge, hiding away one of his top 4 cards under it. Zulaport Cutthroat then makes his debut this game, followed by a Fate Stitcher, and Harry passes. Trevor rolls for his crypt, failing again, but he's still a solid 10 in my eyes. We see Trevor spin the wheel with Golos, exiling 3 cards, and first casting Realms Uncharted. Trevor finds 4 lands, and has me pick the 2 he gets. I have him discard the Coffers and Maze of Ith. Trevor then casts Dread Presence and plays a land, which triggers the presence because he has Urborg out, and he drains Harry for 2. Plays Thespian Stage, draining Harry again for 2, and gaining 4 more zombies. He then cracks the Wooded Foothills with Trevor losing 1, and he grabs a Stomping Grounds. This triggers both Valakut and the Presence, with both going at Harry, and Trevor gains 2 life and 2 zombies, and dealing 3. 5 mana is tapped for a Gitrog monster, which lets Trevor play yet another land this turn, this time Dark Depths, and he has the drain from the Presence take Harry out, and gain 2 more zombies. Trevor then casts Seasons Past, and returns some cards to hand. Moving to combat, he swings his zombies at me. I decide to just take the 8, and Trevor then recasts Vampiric Tutor, and passes to me while searching. I draw my 2, and cast Growing Rites of Itlimoc, looking at my top 4. I reveal Cloudkin Seer, and cast it, drawing as it enters. I then sacrifice both of my creatures to the bombardment, dealing 2 to Trevor. 5 mana then gets me a Living Death, and we swap our creatures on board for those in the graveyard. Sadly, my Phantasmal Image can't come in as a copy of anything, and dies promptly. I do get a draw from the Cloudkit entering, while Ryan gets back his Reki and the Bioessence Hydra, while Trevor gets nothing since he returned the only creatures he had to hand with the Seasons Past in his previous turn. I then pass, transforming the Growing Rites into Itlimoc, Cradle of the Sun at the end of turn. Ryan untaps and draws. He plays a Snow-Covered Plains and casts Nicol Bolas Planeswalker. It enters with 5 loyalty counters, which gives the Hydra 5 more +1/+1 counters as well. He also draws a card from Meki for casting it. We then see Nicol Bolas Dragon God coming in with 4 counters and adding the 4 to the Hydra. Ryan then upticks his second Nicol Bolas, destroying Trevor's real Field of the Dead. He then upticks the Dragon God version of Bolas, doing the same, but this time hitting the Vezuv version. Upticking his walkers also adds counters to the Hydra, which is a pretty amazing card that I'd literally never heard of until Ryan put it onto the battlefield. We then see him upticking Nicol Bolas the Deceiver, and I discard a card, and so does Trevor, to avoid damage, while Ryan adds even more counters to that massive Hydra. Ryan then activates Gideon's Zero ability, and he swings the Hydra and Gideon at Trevor. Trevor asks me to save him, but I can't even take out Gideon with the bombardment, and Trevor, as a result, is taken out. With nothing else, Ryan passes to me. Now is my moment to shine, and I play a forest for turn. I then cast a Risen Reef, and I get a trigger from it entering. It's not a land, so it goes to my hand. Mirror Image then comes in as a copy of Risen Reef, and I get 2 Risen Reef triggers this time. Sadly, neither of those are lands either. I then pay 2 mana for Nature's Lore and go to find a land. It's Breeding Pool, and I take 2 to have it come in untapped. I get a Zendikar Royal trigger, making an Elemental token, which triggers the 2 Risen Reefs. The first one is a land, which gets put into play, and I get another Elemental from the Royal. This gives me 2 more Risen Reef triggers, plus the one from before. Unfortunately, those 3 triggers don't hit me any lands, and I put the cards to hand. I then tap my Itlimoc, making 8 green, and use 2 of it to cast Farseek. I put into play Sacred Foundry, and get another Zendikar Royal Elemental, which means 2 more Risen Reef triggers. One of the 2 is a land, giving me 2 more which aren't. With the 6 green floating still, I tap a 7th for Regal Force. I draw 6 as it enters, and get 2 Risen Reef triggers, and unfortunately put those to my hand as well for not being lands. I ask Ryan for his life total, and he correctly reminds me to mark him lower since he's been tapping his mana confluence. I then take 2 life loss to help cast Birthing Pod, I then take another 2 to pot away my Smoke Braider, but first floating 2 green with its ability, and I go into my library to find a 3-drop. At this point, I thought I could grab Timur Almnath, who is actually a 4-drop, and I realized what I was actually thinking about was Animar. Unfortunately, Animar is actually in my hand, and I'm stuck with putting out Fertilid, but at least I get 2 more Risen Reef triggers. Both aren't lands, and they just go to my hand. I then cast a Leafkin Druid for the mana I made with the Smoke Braider, and I get more Risen Reef triggers as it enters. One of them is a land, and the Royal gives me an Elemental and 2 more triggers. I get another land and do the same. Unfortunately, that's about it, and I have to pass to Ryan, deeply ashamed of my misplay, and have to discard down to 7. Thankfully, Ryan is merciful, and he wants to put me out of my misery quickly, playing a command tower, and asks if I have a legendary creature or planeswalker. I don't, sadly, and he's able to downtick Nicol Bolas Dragon God by -8 to make me lose the game. Game review time. So that ending was special for me. I'm not trying to belittle Ryan's win at all, but I definitely should have been asking my opponents what their stuff does, since I had the Goblin Bombardment on the field and could have at least knocked down the Dragon God for a turn. I don't have much to say about Trevor's Golos deck other than Field of the Dead, especially when you have 2 of them, is absurd, and he had a huge zombie army for most of the game for very little effort. Harry's Tazri deck unfortunately didn't do as much as Martin's version did, but he still got to do a lot of cool stuff, like copying Golos a couple of times. And then there's Ryan's deck. Who doesn't love a good Super Friends deck? I think compared to some other decks I've played against, his was actually probably the most friendly. It didn't try to lock down the board with Small Teferi, and it seemed more focused on bringing out Nicol Bolas and winning through that. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.